Hi everyone, it's Pat Miley, your blue collar conservative again. Um, I'm taking this point to put this video out. It's the day after the Derek Chauvin murder conviction, and I want to talk to you about what how the case should have turned out and why it didn't turn out the way it should have, and basically give you an idea of what went wrong and what went right in the case. Um, Now, first of all, Derek Chauvin is a criminal. He was a police officer. He committed a crime. Was it murder? No. No. He was not guilty of either murders, either degrees of murder. And I'll outline to you exactly why in this. He was, however, guilty of failure to render aid, which resulted in a death, and that constitutes manslaughter. So Derek Chauvin is where he's supposed to be right now. He's supposed to be in prison. He failed to render aid. He failed to, as a police officer, he failed to the man, Mr. Floyd, was definitely in need of aid, and he was in need of, and all the officers really should be charged with this because and convicted of these two crimes because of the events that you see upcoming before what the kneeling on the neck issue. Uh, George Floyd was in respiratory distress pretty much right after the officers arrived, and that's because when the officers arrived, he ingested these drugs to keep from getting caught with them, and he was saying on the video that I can't breathe when he was being taken out of his own car. That's 13 minutes before he was ever laying on the ground outside the police vehicle, and so it was for 20 minutes. This guy had this respiratory distress issue. The officers tried to take him into custody, thinking this "I can't breathe" thing was just bullshit because when you can't breathe, if your airway is obstructed, you're not able to talk when your airway. Somebody's choking. You don't believe me? Try it yourself. Choke somebody and ask them to say something. Uh, that's a joke, but some idiots out there will try it. You can't speak. The vocal cords don't work when your airways obstructed. So they thought he was full of shit, but he wasn't. And they should have, once they got him restrained, the first thing they should have looked at is if he was his signs for respiratory distress. Blue lips from cyanosis actually show up much more pronounced on an African American person than a Caucasian person. So if he was cyanotic, it would really show. Somebody brought up petechia. Petechia is not indicative of respiratory distress. It's indicative of choking. So this is why he. I've reached the conclusion that this is what he should have been convicted of. Now I'm going to go into why he was convicted of all charges, and that was predicated on on fear of a mob, on fear of the city being torn apart again, on fear of someone doxing the names of jury people who would vote against the conviction, and then they and their family being put at risk. So that's one of the reasons. But also another reason he was convicted was he had really bad legal counsel. Uh, the This lawyer really made nothing of this respiratory distress issue whatsoever. Prior to Chauvin even being on location. Derek Chauvin was not on location when he was showing the responding officers were dealing with him when he first started complaining when they were trying to get him out of his SUV, complaining about that he can't breathe, his inability to breathe. They dealt with him a lot longer than Chauvin did. Chauvin was a backup officer. Then the other issue, though, that the defense didn't bring up is the fact that there was four people conducted autopsies, or one, their own medical examiner said about the drugs and the heart condition being the primary causes of his death. Then the family brought in a celebrity uh, doctor, celebrity uh, pathologist, Dr. Michael Baden. And I really don't fucking like this guy, and I'll tell you why. What he's made his fortunes off of is the miseries of others. He'll come in and stick his nose into a case and fuck it up, and then walk away and write a book about it. He meddled in the JonBenet Ramsey case. He meddled in, well, he was the client. He was one of the dream team in the O.J. Simpson case, but he meddled in the JonBenet Ramsey case, just as another guy, Cyril Wecht from Pittsburgh, did. But he never made physical examinations of the evidence from the JonBenet Ramsey case, but claimed he did, and he never did, and pretty much fouled the whole damn thing up. And both parents went to the grave not knowing who killed their daughter. Then you have the fact that this third autopsy report was merely a review made by the chief pathologist over the previous pathologist's autopsy. So the prosecution's case was based on a review of a previous autopsy. They didn't bring in the original person who conducted the autopsy. What muddied the waters was this clown, Dr. Baden, made claims of a fractured hyoid bone, damage done to the hyoid bone. Well, damage done to the hyoid bone is indicative of manual strangulation, and no one else had indicated anything like that. Because then the defense also had their experts that got to examine the reports, but not the remains. Now, this whole thing with George Floyd, there were people who have an agenda to push. This man was a drug addict. He was a violent criminal. He stuck his firearm in the belly of a pregnant woman, a loaded firearm during a home invasion. This man is not a good person. Irrelevant. He shouldn't have died. But why I am bringing this up is they are treating this guy. He had a whirlwind funeral. He had 3 funerals. He had two memorial services in 2 different cities, and then he went to where he was born to get buried. Presidents don't have that anymore. I mean, they used to take the president's bodies on tours, on a train, their casket. This guy was treated like he was Nelson Mandela or Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. What he was a street thug, and he should not be granted this level of almost divinity, treating him like he was a divine entity. He was by no means worthy of this. He was no Medgar Evers by any stretch of the imagination. The statements made by Maxine Waters, the fact that this jury was not sequestered, this judge didn't sequester the jury. The legal settlement news came out. The settlement about the boy getting killed in Brooklyn Central got killed. That came out. Her Maxine Waters' statements, President Bush's, not Bush's, Biden's statements all came out, and this all prejudiced the jury, as if the jury really needed to be prejudiced any further than the fact that they had to be in fear for their lives if they returned any verdict other than guilty on all counts. So the city didn't burn last night. That's nice. You know, they're calling this justice. No, it's not justice. It's mob rule. The mob took over our criminal justice system. He should be convicted. He should be sentenced for what he did or didn't do. The fact that he and those other officers did not render aid 27 times from the beginning of the confrontation till his death, he said, "I can't breathe." Why didn't somebody take a look and check to see if he was cyanotic? They wouldn't have even had to roll him over. They would have just tilted his head to see that. And then they could roll him over and sit him up so he could breathe better and get an ambulance. Instead, they didn't call an ambulance until after his heart stopped beating. It's a bad situation all over. We have a cop in Ohio. There's violence in Ohio because a cop shot a girl with a knife who was about to stab another girl. You have that. You have idiots like Dog the Bounty Hunter, fucking Leatherface, saying that lethal rounds should be taken away from the police officers. Lethal rounds. They should only have non-lethal weapons. Yeah, see how well that works. You dumb motherfucker. Sorry, but you got him. I'm very irritated with Sean Hannity as of late because, first of all, he talks about his martial arts background. I have a martial arts background too. I also worked in law enforcement. Can I tell you how often martial arts actually helped me in a situation? None. It's completely different circumstances. Sparring in a dojo and fighting on the street are two different things, Sean Hannity. He's starting to sound more like Alan Combs every day. I remember when Alan Combs said that the police should be equipped with nets so they could throw nets over people with guns. Throw nets over them. Okay, yeah, that's really smart. Then you have these. Sean Hannity is also pushing a pepper ball gun that's powered off of CO2 canisters. And if you see the size and the weight of these pepper balls, they're roughly the size of a little smaller than a rifled slug from a shotgun. So they got some weight to them, and they load in a magazine and look like an orange semi-automatic pistol, and looks like a toy really, and pretty much is. Their demonstration videos show these guys getting shot in the abdomen with them and in the chest, and yeah, it may hurt, but it's not going to knock somebody off their feet like they show. It's also going to be zero effective on somebody who's on drugs. So he's pushing that. People are talking about training officers, giving them more training about this de-escalation and all this stuff. How about you train your child to behave? And that's an odd concept. Somebody will say, well, that's racist. What the fuck's a 13-year-old boy doing out in the street in the middle of the night with a gun? Is that an example of good parenting? No, it isn't. But Chicago PD shot this kid, and everybody's up in arms about the cop, and about the cop shooting a guy who had a gun in his hand. Body cam video shows that. Oh, so what's his choice? Letting himself get shot by this guy? No, I'd rather see the. If I have to pick between a dead kid and a dead cop, the dead kid's armed, I'll take the dead kid. Sorry, that's how I feel. Whose fault is that kid being out in the street at night? Mom and Dad's fault. Mom and Dad's fault. I mean, the amount of parenting that's happening in so many homes today is unreal. And then Black Lives Matter does not really mean Black Lives Matter. What it means is we hate cops. Because there have been so many shootings that are black on black violence. And that doesn't bother them. If Black Lives Matter, it should bother them a great deal. Last weekend, a little 7-year-old girl got killed in a McDonald's drive-thru. Somebody opened fire on her daddy's car. I don't know why they fired at her dad. Her dad could have been a witness to a crime, and he could have been a criminal himself. I don't know. What I do know is that little 7-year-old girl is dead. And Black Lives Matter doesn't say a damn thing. They don't go around saying, say their name, say their name. You know what? Say her name. Say her name. Because she's dead. She's dead, and she's another dead person from black on black violence. Last year, city of Philadelphia had 500 murders. 500 murders, and the overwhelming majority of them were done. The victim was black. I mean, I'm talking over 80%. The victim was black. Perpetrator was black. So you have over 80% of the homicides in Philadelphia last year was black on black violence. There are over 2,200 shooting victims and 500 murders in Philadelphia last year. We got over 178 in Chicago just the first 4 months of this year. It's looking bad. It's looking bad, and you see how they attack the officer all the time when he defends himself. Chauvin, that's not the case. I'm not saying Chauvin. The Chauvin case was clearly what it was. It was a failure to render aid, and it was manslaughter. And that's the way it should go. It should have went down, and that's the way it should go down with the other officers, because they just stood there. So, what else do I want to talk about on this? It's all about law enforcement. The Maryland and Virginia National Guards are deploying National Guard soldiers around Washington, D.C. in case of violence this next week. And they are unarmed, which is a real shock considering we just had a National Guardsman shot at less than a week ago down there. And the mayor of Washington wants these guys walking the streets, patrolling the streets of the Capitol unarmed. Nothing good happens when you have a soldier who's unarmed. Just ask the family of the Marine Marines that were killed in the Beirut airport in 1983. They stood post and unloaded weapons because of the UN, another liberal institution. You really, my cat just opened the basement door. You can't use these standards that people are putting on cops right now and be serious. Uh, Cops are not social workers. Cops are not mental health delegates, but yet they probably more frequently are involved with people who are mental health issues than mental health delegates. Uh, it's a shame everything that's being thrown at them right now, and why so many have taken early retirement and have left the job, and that's it's just a damn shame. All right, well, I'm done for now, and I will let you know how I feel later on other issues.